Welcome back to a special edition episode of AK-47 Radio, bringing you the best of the motherland tonight with more rights, but also more tyranny.
Wait a minute.
As always, I am your comrade commissar Will. I am joined as usual by the cosmonaut general Mikhail Gonzalez,
Hi.
as well as our party janitor Sam Alexander.
He's not here right now. He's cleaning the bathroom. He'll be here in a second.
I actually did want to change it to
Oh, he's back. Cool.
but I thought I'd leave it alone tonight.
Yeah, he's he needed to wash his hands, but he didn't have time. So it's a good thing he's only touching his mic and not ours, so we don't get pink eye. But in addition to your normal hosts, tonight we have an extremely special guest. We have Mr. William Kirk from Washington Gun Law. Very excited to have you on, sir. Thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it. And we want to give you some time to introduce yourself, tell the audience about you, whatever you think they should know.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. It's a real pleasure. My name is William Kirk, practicing trial attorney for about 30 years out here in the People's Republic of Washington. Had really just had a standalone website that was called Washington Gun Law that I kind of launched in about 2017. It was nothing more than an information website. Pandemic rolls around, little summer of love rolls around in Seattle. Everyone starts freaking out, calling my phone number all the time, complete panic mode. What do I do if I drive into an Antifa rally? What do I do if they're throwing Molotov cocktails into my business? Started doing videos just to break down the law into simple English. Figured I'd do it for a few months. Then the world would go back to normal and I'd go back to just being Bill the lawyer. And then by the time the world started resembling something of normal out here in the Seattle area, we were well over 100,000 subscribers. So we just kind of kept plugging away at it. And it's worked out really well and I enjoy it. And I never thought, 5 years ago when we started doing this, that I'd be getting to do stuff like this and be almost a full-time content creator. So Washington Gun Law is a channel where you're going to get it real straight. We're not going to tell you how to think. We're just going to give you all the stuff to think about. We don't pride ourselves on always trying to be first, but we do try to pride ourselves on always trying to be right. And so, yeah, hop on board. And if you just need some simple, lot of English translation, you can find all of that at Washington Gun Law.
So you said the important thing to a lot of our audience and to one of my guest hosts. I'll let you figure out which one it is. You're a lawyer. You've passed the bar. You are a legal expert in terms of those things.
I am a lawyer. I practiced in Washington State, been licensed in Washington State since 1997. Worked as a prosecuting attorney for a few years in King County. Prosecuted a lot of cases. Went into private defense. Have tried hundreds of cases, the verdict. So I come from the trial lawyer side of things. A lot of 2A advocates come from either the civil or the appellate side of things. I come at it from the trial side of things. And so, yeah, and being a trial lawyer means that there's a moment at the end of every trial. It's called the closing argument, where you've got to get up. You might only have 10 or 15 minutes to do it. You got to break it all down for those people who weren't fortunate enough to get out of jury duty. And you've got to, you got to break it down to them in simple English, go over the evidence, go over the law. And so what I really do with a video at Washington Gun Law, it's a closing argument. I'm going to take a 50-page opinion and I'm going to give it to you in 12 minutes straight. And you're going to sit there and you'll understand at the end of it. You might be pissed. I get that. But if that's your reaction, but you will understand and you will understand why you were pissed as well.
Yep. And I think that's a brilliant strategy for one. As I think I told you, and I know I told your assistant when we were corresponding about tonight, we are three idiots on the internet. That is how I introduce AK-47 radio to everybody. And our audience is only our audience because they are also idiots on the internet. And I love you guys. And every one of them is going to be like, yep, he's right in the comments. Unless they want to say something else to fuck with me. So that's exactly what we need, because there's a lot of nuance I've noticed over the years in these laws and in these decisions that get handed out by judges after arguments and filings and all the things. And us normal people just can't process that. So we need somebody that's smart like you to make it dumb for people like us. So we're really happy to have you on.
Well, I appreciate that's one way, but it's just really taking legalese and converting it to simple English the way we're going to talk tonight, just using normal words like normal people talk.
Yeah. It's
Small words.
That's cute. You think we're normal.
Normal-er.
any good teacher does that. I've been an instructor professionally for jobs I've had, and that's the first thing that you actually learn when you have your instructors and then you become an instructor for the same thing. If you can make anybody understand the thing you're talking about, then you're good to go. If you try to act smart and holier than thou and, oh, I know more than you, you're going to lose your audience. So that's really cool. And I'm glad you were able to build that off of something as shitty as COVID.
Yeah, exactly. COVID in Seattle, so like double shitty. Okay.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
That might actually have been worse than Denver.
It may have been. It may have been.
It probably
Denver
was.
didn't get a chopper or anything like that.
Yeah, you guys didn't have your own
That's
sovereign
true.
independent state staked out.
Yeah.
Which
was gonna
was
say-
marked by clearly marked borders and patrolled with firearms too. So
Oh, wait. We can do that inside of the sovereign United States, but we can't do that at the edge
At
of
the
the
actual
sovereign United
border.
States.
the actual borders, yes, correct. That's
Hmm.
the policy.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Yeah.
So I guess because I know we do have a limited time, and again, really appreciate you giving us the time. So I don't want to waste a lot of time just tisming and joking back and forth. For the audience, we will not be doing any party interests this week. We'll save all of our so party interest is a segment we do where it's, what did you do this week? It could be gun related, it can be fun or interesting life things, just kind of an icebreaker, but we're not going to be doing that stuff, just to give you more time to talk us through the topics. And the first topic that I really want to get into, I know there's a lot of other stuff that has come out since you and I ran into each other at Goals.
Yep.
I'll tell that story.
It's been an active few weeks, hasn't it?
It's
Quite.
Yeah.
During the last administration. Sorry, I got an echo. During the last administration, it seemed like it was a very active few weeks every single month in the other direction. And now it seems like it's the exact opposite.
Okay.
We ran into each other at the PSA booth at Goals, and I was looking at an AK because I don't own an AK, even though I'm a co-host of the AK-47 radio show.
And despite our best efforts, he insists on spending his money on literally everything but an AK. I'm just going to put that out for the 40th time.
I need Stargate LARP. Shut the fuck up.
You need Commie LARP.
I
As well
have
as Stargate
own
LARP.
several long guns, and I do not own a single one in the AK platform.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you vetted this guy well.
Well, thank you for coming on tonight, sir. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Well, he lives in Washington. He can't say he owns it.
Well, now I can't buy one anyways until
Yeah.
perhaps next summer. So we'll see.
Next summer. Woo! I want to talk about that, but not now.
There's
So,
a clue.
Let's stay on topic.
Yes. So we were talking. We were talking about
Colorado
sir.
Senate Bill 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a terrible law, and it's a terrible law that unfortunately I don't think enough people in the country are aware of it. And this is a law where if you think, well, it's never gonna end up here, I can flat guarantee you that if you're in any state right now that has a pre-existing assault weapon ban, should the United States Supreme Court overturn those next summer, your state will absolutely implement something quite similar to what Colorado has done. I think it is gun control 2.0. When the bans start getting struck down, these states are going to migrate to some other way to, hinder access to the Second Amendment. And I think Colorado, the folks out in Colorado always think they got the worst gun laws in America. They don't. They're not even in the top 5, but they do have the most creative gun control laws in America. That is true. And people do need to watch what they do in Colorado, just like your expanded red flag laws. Very, very innovative. And that's also another way by which you're going to see when they just simply can't ban the access to the firearm itself, they're going to come up with other ways of doing it. And pre-purchasing licensing is absolutely one way they're going to do it. And they're going to stratify these licenses out so that you'll have a regular firearms license that only costs you, a couple $100 in a 4-hour class. And then you're going to have a handgun, to start. Well, then you're going to have your handgun. Oh, you want a handgun? Well, that's going to cost you, about $600 and a 12-hour class. Oh, you want a semi-automatic rifle license? Okay. Well, that's going to cost you $4,000 for training. The class is about 100 hours long. There's a 6-month waiting list, and then there's $400 of fees and taxes on top of it also. That's what you're going to see, and they will push it out to the outer edges until a competent court, and as you guys now know, when it comes to Circuit Court of Appeals and Second Amendment issues, there's not every one of those circuits are competent on this issue, so these things can last for quite a while. And that's why everyone needs to pay attention to what's happening with Colorado Senate Bill 3.
I have one question. It's an opinion type question too.
All right.
So Senate Bill 3 started off as an assault weapons ban. And then I think they got it as far as the Senate before they ran into the back room and turned it into this FOID card-esque system.
Gas operated semi-automatic magazine fed firearms, which is why the Desert Eagle and the Walther CCP, which isn't even made ananymore, are on that list.
I have one. It kind of sucks.
Anyway, I have suspected since roughly that time that most the reason they did it is for what we just talked about in terms of if the assault weapons bans get knocked down, we need something extra.
So I fully think that's the case because Snope and Ocean State Tactical were at the Supreme Court at the time, and they thought that, the writing was on the wall. They thought the Supreme Court was going to take both those cases. And remember, I was saying this last year, the very same thing, that it didn't matter if they passed this, if Snope and Ocean State Tactical were approved by the court and they overturned them the year after this year, then it wouldn't matter. And then lo and behold, they changed it in the backroom deal, and now it's a FOID card because Will's right. This is exactly what they're going to. Now, Will, my take on this, and this is why Kami Will mentioned that you'll figure out which one of us has another tism. I have a degree in criminal justice, so law is also another one of my tisms, not nearly as much as tismy as yours, I will fully admit. However, given the Bruin ruling and given the amount of cases that we've seen overturned, things that we never thought we'd see in our lifetime, things like the NFA being dismantled in front of our eyes, with the Bruin ruling and the mandate that if the Second Amendment is implicated, the state is obligated to prove that there were analogous laws at the time of the founding, I don't think this law stands up in court because, and yes, Colorado's judges are Kami all the way to the state Supreme Court. We'll get to the 10th Circuit where we'll have a chance, I think, but that's going to take years. But again, my take on it is they won't survive more than a few years because they are impediments to a right. You can't tax a right. It's just a giant roadblock, and we can all see that. The question is, will the judges?
Right. I think your assessment is spot on, and I think that we could actually simplify the equation even more. Okay, let's take it out of the Second Amendment. And let's just ask, and this is how I explain it to people in Washington State when we were kicking around our pre-purchasing licensing legislation set to go into effect next May. I was like, let's just take buy a gun out of the sentence and let's write any other constitutional right. So you have to pay for training and go get a license before you go to church. You have to pay for training and get government's permission before you speak freely or before you're free from unreasonable government searches and seizures or have access to counsel or are free from cruel and unusual punishment, or in some states where they've codified the right to an abortion, which are actually in state constitutions. Should anyone be required to pay for mandatory training and prove their worthiness, then get a permission slip before they exercise a right? The equation truly is that simple. What the way these pre-purchasing licensing laws are being propped up is under Bruin footnote 9, which talks about shall issue carrying regimes. It has nothing to do with pre-purchasing licensing. Bruin talks about manners of carry and the types of restrictions we can place on where and how we carry a firearm. It speaks nothing to our actual elementary access to the Second Amendment. And so I agree. Will it survive in the long run? No. But the FOID card went into existence in 1968 in Illinois. Right?
It's still not gone, but we have, like I said, we've seen the dismantling of some of the NFA. So there's a lot of things that are turning around in our favor.
That's right.
Maybe I'm just being too hopeful. I realize that there's a lot of activist judges out there that will rule in favor of they'll rule every time that the government has vested interest, this has a right to keep the people safe, that and that's what they'll use to enforce their tyranny. That's what King George, I mean, I don't want to rant on over like all night, but you can equate modern Democrats to the Tories of the Revolution. They have exactly the same principles.
They do. That is correct. That's correct. And I am disappointed at the current time that the Department of Justice hasn't filed a suit against the state of Colorado for the implementation of this law.
Same.
I have theories as to why they haven't. Those theories are beginning to, I'm beginning to re-question it because of what's happening with the NFA, and we don't need to get into that huge dot connection thing today, but that would be amazingly helpful, because once you got the DOJ coming in and suing, you got a law firm that doesn't have a budget.
Yep.
Right. I mean, you just, because, you know, once you get private organizations and private law firms involved, they can get priced out of long-term litigation. DOJ, they'll never get priced out of litigation ever.
Right. Which is why it's so hard for us to fight these laws, because we have to have organizations like GOA and SAF to fund these lawyers like you for us, because Joe Schmo, Mike, cannot go hire a Second Amendment lawyer and say, I want to fight SB 003. It's not going to happen. I don't have the funds for it.
Right.
And no lawyer is going to be like, yeah, I'll go fight that for free for you. We need Second Amendment advocacy.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And private citizens typically end up being, we use them, don't take this the wrong way, they're used as the warm bodies to be the named plaintiff.
Yeah.
But all the funding is coming from the organizations, which means it's actually coming from its donors, which means it's coming from the American people. And that's why, and listen, if for all your viewers out there, if you're not a part of an organization, or you're part of one and you're thinking about getting into a couple others, listen, think about what's happened in just the last few weeks here. And SAF and GOA and FPC, they're on heaters right now. I mean, they are absolutely knocking heads in. And so, show, to all your viewers out there, show these organizations some love. You are absolutely seeing some return on the investment.
Well, that's why we went to Goals. I mean, we couldn't go to GunCon this year. Goals seemed like a fantastic secondary one to go to, because we do agree with their message. We're gun guys the same as everybody else that was there, and we all want the same thing. We want a free America, and we do that by being armed.
That's right. My philosophy, or I guess my tradition every year, people have Christmas traditions or Thanksgiving or whatever. My tradition is on my birthday every year. I change the batteries in my optics, and I go re-sign up for all the pro-gun organizations that I've signed up for before, and I pick one new one every year to add.
Awesome.
That's my birthday gift.
That's awesome. That's solid work.
So it makes it easy. You don't forget, your membership doesn't lapse, and you're growing the community.
That's pretty awesome, dude. Will, I want to circle around to something you said. So the DOJ filing their lawsuits against the state of Colorado and the city of Denver for their assault weapons ban and for the state's magazine capacity ban. Those in particular were huge to me, and I saw those as huge good signs from the government, because per the Constitution, and I may have said this on our show before, but I'm just going to reiterate it for the purposes, but per the Constitution, the federal government has 3 jobs: promote the general welfare, provide for the common defense, and collect and levy taxes to those 2 ends. This is the second, or this is one of the 2. I don't remember which one is which, but it's them protecting the rights of the people. Or I'm sorry, it's not promote the general welfare, it's protect the rights of the people and provide for the common defense. And this is the federal government protecting the rights of the people. For the first time, the federal government has filed lawsuits against a state for laws they think violate the Second Amendment. That's never happened before. And
it's
that's
happened on
huge.
multiple occasions now, because you have the suit against Colorado, you have the suit against Denver, you now have a suit against Montgomery County, Maryland on sensitive places. You have a suit also in the Virgin Islands on a whole slew of their gun laws.
Yep.
So yeah, this is, and I know there's this debate about, is this really the most pro Second Amendment Department of Justice ever? And as I joke on the channel, that's like arguing about who the tallest munchkin is on the set of the laws, because it's like, well, the competition's not too stiff there. But yes, it is, for one simple reason, and this is what I think that makes the debate just not even debatable, is has there ever been a Department of Justice that was actually out there doing plaintiff's work?
Nope.
Literally going out and actively suing under 34 United States Code section 12601, and literally going out and suing on behalf of the American people to recapture rights that were taken from them by local government. That's freaking huge.
And they're using that endless purse that you mentioned to do it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And candidly, knowing what I know about what's going on over at DOJ, at least within the Second Amendment section, I think if they had more lawyers over there, we would see even more. I think the reason you're not seeing a larger body of work is just not having the manpower. And listen, they've went out and plucked away a bunch of really good lawyers to be in that section. So if someone's out there and is interested, it is an opportunity to work with some of the best Second Amendment litigators in the country right now.
And they picked some really good cases to start on too.
Yeah. And I would love to see them pick another fight with Colorado on Senate Bill 3. I really, really would. It just hasn't happened yet.
I was hoping they would the day it dropped, but
yeah,
the lack of lawsuits across the country, I hadn't thought about it before, but you're probably right. It's a lack of resources. Shut down the ATF, fully fund the DOJ.
Yeah, but you gotta remember, if we shut down the ATF, somebody else is going to be doing a lot of their jobs anyways, and it could be the FBI or somebody like that.
Yeah,
so.
It could be the FBI-TF. We don't even need the FBI-AT. We don't even need the F part.
We don't need the A or the T either.
Well, to be fair, we don't have constitutional rights to those, so
we also don't
all they want.
We also don't need the E.
No, we don't. That falls under the arms.
Yeah.
So I know one of the things you were interested in, Mr. Kirk, when we met and talked.
Bill. Yeah, Mr. Kirk was my dad. You just call me Bill or Will.
All right. I was trying to make a distinction between this Will and that Will, but yeah,
right.
Bill works.
You want to call me Bill tonight? That is totally okay. All right, because actually I am Bill in the real world. I'm just William when I'm in the courtroom. So when I started doing videos, I started introducing myself the same way I introduced myself in a courtroom, and that's how I ended up with William Kirk.
Look, Sam, I'm not the only one. So in my real life, I go by another name. I think we talked about that too. But I started using Will for this to try to keep that life separate. But yeah, one of the things you seemed interested in was what is life like on the ground post SB3 in Colorado, and for the most part, it doesn't seem much different, which I was actually extremely surprised by. Sam has specifically gone to one or two places, and he has some eyes-on insight to discuss. But before we get to what's it like as a customer in a gun shop today in Colorado, I wanted to share a quick story. So my new boss, I recently changed jobs. My new boss is a big gun guy, and he actually somehow learned the process to get the card and the approval to buy assault weapons before I figured it out. And so we were actually talking about that at work today. And the way I understand it is you have to go through, Colorado Fish and Wildlife or whatever
CPW.
Yeah.
It's like
to go through
recreation or something like that. It's
yeah. You go through them, and then you get them to verify. The easiest way, the least burdensome way, is verify that you already have a hunter safety card. And to my understanding, they will accept out of state hunter safety as well. So it doesn't have to just go through Colorado, which I was surprised by because Colorado loves their money. and then you go to your you go through a background check, you go to your sheriff's office, they verify those two things, you pay a fee for the background check. They will give you yet another card that says you are eligible to then take the course, which if you have your hunter safety is a 4-hour course. If you don't have your hunter safety, it is a 2-day long course that instead of a 4-hour course, and it's by law, it has to be 2 days. That's the verbiage of the law.
Right. Yeah, it has to be separated over 2
Yeah.
days. Yeah, it
And
can
then
be 10
once
on
you,
one day and 2 on the other, but it has to be 2 days. Yeah.
yep. And then once you get that card, so you've got to get 3 cards for this process, or 2 or 3 cards for this process, in order to then go in and say, I want to buy an AR-15 or a Desert Eagle.
Okay, so let's back up and think about this for a second. Let's break it down in simple English here, right? Because what you have to do now is you have to go get a permission slip to go do a background check and pass that before you can then go get another permission slip to then spend money to take a class to prove your worthiness by going through a background check for all of this before you can then get the permission slip to go to a gun store to go through another background check when you purchase the firearm. Is that right?
That's my understanding. I haven't gone through the process yet because it's
I
so big.
I can't see how any sane judge doesn't say, you know what, that's absolutely asinine. Yeah, I'm enjoining that.
You know, here's the thing that people really need to understand, because we just described that process, and then I'm assuming your state has some kind of a statutory waiting period too.
Yeah,
3 days.
We're in the 10th Circuit, which I want to ask you about that too, but we'll circle around.
I don't know the answer to that. It shouldn't be, but yeah, I know exactly the difference between the two cases out there. Ortega being the one where they struck it down. So think about the battered woman who's just getting out of that relationship, and she might have a protection order, but come on, what's a piece of paper? Does that save lives? And so, I mean, she is legitimately fearful for her life, and she wants to use a weapon such as this for personal defense, which she has the God-given right to do. How many weeks is it from her making the decision that she wants to get one of these before she actually has one in her possession?
I'd guess 4 to 6 months.
4 to 6. A lot of bad stuff can happen to her in 4 to 6 months,
can.
by the way.
Yeah.
Right?
Based on how long the CCW process takes, based on how long everything that you guys just mentioned will take, getting scheduled for all that, and finally having the final documents in hand, ready to go to pick up your gun, and then having to wait 3 more days for it, I swear I won't get mad.
And the money to do all of that.
You can get mad. You should be mad about this, because this is asinine. And how anyone thinks that this even comes remotely close to comporting with the Constitution as it relates not only to the access of Second Amendment rights, but as it would relate to the access of any of our constitutional rights. Take it out of the Second Amendment. This is, and I love to do this with people when they're arguing. It's like you take it out of the Second Amendment and just throw for everybody loves the First Amendment. At least they claim they do. So give them the First Amendment examples. Can you imagine having to do all of this before you could go to church? It's crazy.
I like to argue on the internet for some reason, and that's one of the arguments
easier
that
out
people,
there. It's easier that way, isn't it?
they
It's easier that way than face to face, isn't it?
yeah, it's fun to see how people really are.
That's not a compliment.
Pop quiz, Bill. Did you?
I didn't take it as one.
I deal with keyboard warriors all the time. So
He just called Mike a keyboard warrior.
I'm not
I
gonna
love it.
lie. That's
warrior. I just said that I deal with keyboard warriors. I'm not saying he is.
Oh, he definitely is.
You guys,
there's two types of people on the internet. There's keyboard warriors, and there's those that deal with them. And I think that I'm in the second category.
Okay, fair.
Because I like to, I spread education. I say, no, that's not what assault weapons are. I'm one of those idiots that's like, no, assault rifle is a real term, you ding dong. Assault weapon is the made up term. To be fair, all terms are made up, but assault weapon and assault rifle are not synonymous, you dumb fuck. I don't say the last part because it's the internet, and they don't generally listen if you say the last part, but I'm thinking it in my head.
Well, I don't know. I think the F bomb can be used appropriately. I mean, the Firearms Policy Coalition markets themselves. If they don't drop at least 3 F bombs a day on their X account, I don't know what's going on over at FPC. So,
Fuck you, no.
I think they're great, but they definitely have a unique marketing style.
Matt LaRosiere is like a hero of mine for what he did in Congress.
Dude, FPC does really good work. Really good work.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Well, before we get to that,
Got it.
Mike, Sam, why don't you've probably spent more time in gun shops than me and Mike combined since we started talking about having this show. So why don't you give your experience?
Only Shields. No, I've been in a couple more, but I am at Shields a lot because unfortunately, for my wallet, Shields is on my way home, and they're right where I usually need to go to the bathroom too. Anyway, well, the weirdest thing, so local gun shops that I've seen, it looked as bad as it did in say 20, maybe not as bad as not as bad as 2020 because there were guns, but there was nothing in the AR-15 family in most of the small local stores, like totally cleared out. And then another an anecdote I discovered last weekend is that my brother-in-law ordered a lower into a local shop that was so overwhelmed with orders they didn't get back to him in time. So he has a lower stuck in limbo right now at a gun store because with the 3-day waiting period, he didn't get his background check done by the 28th, and then 29th, and then 30th, 31st, or whatever rolled around. And so by the time he was able to technically go in and pick it up, he was past the August 1st date. Is it the 31st, or is there, I forgot how many days there are in
yeah,
July.
you're right. There's 30 days in June, so there's 31.
Well, either way, he didn't get his, he would have done his background check on the 29th then. So then 30, 31st, and then, oh, you can pick it up the 1st, but oh, no, you can't. The weirdest thing, so that was that, but one weird thing is I've never seen shields with half of, because in our shields, there's a little back area where they keep all the AR-15s and everything else in that same, hell, it's 99% AR-15s, behind a bunch of little cages.
Yeah.
That half of that was all empty. They only had all the weird little 22s left. Interestingly, though, give it a couple weeks and they're back to fully stocked up. So they're restocked. I don't see a whole lot of people doing background checks for them, obviously.
My guess was they sold all their inventory in the last days and the distributors hadn't caught back up with them.
I don't think all, because I went in there. Let's see, what day did I drive home from Goals?
Saturday,
which was the 2nd or the 1st of I forget what day it was. I'm not pulling up my calendar. Whatever.
Second, yeah.
It was like the day after or the day after that I was back in Shields. So it would have been like the 2nd or the 3rd I was in Shields. And they still had some, but now they get mostly cleaned out of anything AR-15 related.
Gun salesman of the year. It's always the I mean, talk to the folks out in Virginia.
Yeah.
They blew it out. And then the law got enjoined anyways and will remain enjoined for the foreseeable future. So things have probably quieted down at the gun stores there because everyone's stocked up. But boy, they had a banner couple of months out there.
See, Virginia is what gives me a little bit of hope. I didn't think Virginia had any hope, and then they got their law permanently enjoined. So yes, I realize theirs is enjoined because of the Supreme Court case, but there's still hope.
The thing that should give you guys the most hope, other than the obvious about the Supreme Court taking one of these cases, is what happened in the Third Circuit in that ANJ RPC or Cheeseman case.
Yeah,
that's the circuit split that we always wanted, and now the court's in a position where they can just basically write off that, use that opinion as its foundation for its ruling. I think that's why everyone's cautiously optimistic that we're going to win that issue. I think the real issue is are we going to get a ruling that has enough broad language in there that it can encapsulate magazines as well, or do we still got to go through that, BS all over again?
Well, the one that, or the two cases that the Supreme Court took involved magazines, as I recall.
They
don't. It didn't.
As a matter of fact, there's a docket entry in the Viramontes case that says the issue to be decided on it will be the issue presented in Viramontes, and that issue is does the Second and 14th Amendment protect the AR-15 and similar semi-automatic rifles? That's the sole issue. Now, if you really want to get geeky for a minute, you take a look at the language in Wolford v. Lopez. You'd figure out how that's going to apply to the first part of the Bruin test. They could use that same expansive language. It clearly encapsulates anything that's used either offensively or defensively, anything that's used to assist in armed self-defense. Of course, a magazine is necessary to all semi-automatic firearms because without a magazine, it is no longer a semi-automatic firearm, right?
Yep.
So, will the court craft broad enough rulings to encapsulate that? And then will courts like the Ninth Circuit in Duncan or the Washington State Supreme Court that we dealt out here, we're here with on the Gators case, will they take the hint or will they just do what they often do, which is just do some type of legal and mental gymnastics and work their way around the ruling and wait for it to go back up again?
This is why the fight will never be over, because shall not be infringed has been interpreted by so many people to mean so many different things when it's very clear what it means. I would love to see what you just talked about, the combination of the different case law, get applied to things besides just firearms too. Like all these states with switchblade knives or gravity knife, switchblade knife laws or gravity knife laws,
Spring
or
knife, spring blade knives, all that stuff. Yep.
whatever else. Like it's still
Body
a
armor.
bearable arm.
Body armor.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to bring up body armor.
No, but we start seeing that if an arm is anything that a man could take it in his hand or use either offensively or defensively, what's body armor?
Don't
It
piss me
sounds
off.
like it's
Defensive
used right
armament.
effectively for defensive purposes.
There's a reason they call it armor.
Yeah, right. So, so one interpretation.
It was more the way he pronounced armor.
Yeah.
It's very French. It's my armor.
No,
Yeah.
that's armoire.
That's armoire, right?
That's my suit of armoire.
You.
Oh yeah, I mean, we would love to suppressors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. There's another issue. Do we honestly think that the Second Amendment only protects the fire control group and the barrel, and everything else is not protected by the Second Amendment?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Don't start on barrels.
when you consider what is necessary to actually discharge a round, I mean, a typical handgun, semi-automatic handgun is going to have about 45 to 55 individual pieces to it. About 5 of them are used for the actual firing sequence.
Well, it's
Everything else is there for other crap.
Yep.
Well, it's like last session. So not even last year, this past session, they tried to make barrels a 4473 item here.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Serialized and everything.
I'm glad
Well,
that fell.
I mean, if they want to have them, run through 4473, you're going to have to define them as arms. If you define them as arms, then you can't ban them.
Yep.
So there's, and this is the thing, guys, is you are seeing they call it the gun control movement, but gun control is bad English also, just like assault weapon, assault rifle. It's bad English. It's civilian disarmament, right? That's what it is.
It's
Okay?
control.
And we are seeing, that's right. Gun control is not about the guns. It is about the control. Absolutely. But we're beginning to see odors of desperation coming from them. Okay. They're scrambling. Because you got to understand their sacred fundraising cow platform bans could be gone in less than a year. Right. And you take a look at what's happened on a nationwide level. See, when you live behind enemy lines, like you guys in Colorado or me out here in Washington State, it's very easy to believe that the Second Amendment is literally on life support. But if you really take that 35,000 foot view, you go back from the time of Heller, where essentially the Second Amendment was dead letter law. You go back just 8 years ago, there was 12 constitutional carry states. Now there's 29. You take a look at the huge advancements in case law. You're taking a look at now the NFAs being eroded. You're taking a look at all of Biden's ATF rules that crumbled or were recalled. You got a DOJ in there swinging for the fences for you now too. Never been a better time to be an advocate of the Second Amendment because it's never been healthier than it is right now.
I have a question for you on that. As an advocate of the Second Amendment, as a Second Amendment, I'm not going to use the pun. When you argue a case for a client, let's say you took a case for an assault weapons possession charge. Would you? You know what? I'm not going to presume. Can you walk us through how you would argue that case?
Well, okay, so let's just do it right here in my backyard. Let's make it Washington State. Someone is in possession of an assault weapon that was not grandfathered in, and they could actually prove all of the essential elements. Okay. Do you take a case like that to trial? No, you file a pretrial motion to dismiss based upon the fact that he's being prosecuted under unconstitutional statute, and you just take it up from there, because trying the case factually to a jury is going to be instructed as to the state of the law, and the jury will also be instructed that it's not your job to determine the righteousness of this law, the constitutionality, or anything like that. It is your duty just to follow the law as instructed to you in the jury instructions. So a case like that would be very, very difficult to win on the merits. You'd have to win it on legal grounds. You see this when I was prosecuting back in the day. I used to do these felony drug cases, right? Cops go buy a few rocks from somebody and then they bust them, and so we're dealing with that. And every one of those cases was we were going to challenge the constitutionality of the seizure or the search or something to that effect. If the defendant lost, they were going to appeal and just take it up on legal issues, because to take a case like that to trial when we got the drugs and the bad guy has the money that we photographed before we gave it to him, yeah, it's pretty good evidence, right? So that's what would probably happen. And that's what happened in the Gators Guns case with Wally, the one that's sitting before the United States Supreme Court now, is that wasn't even a criminal action on that case. That was the attorney general filing a civil suit, because the sheriff down there and the prosecutor down there were never going to prosecute Wally for selling magazines. He was blowing them out. He had a bin right at the front counter. It was free for all. So the attorney general sent inspectors in there undercover, and they bought, and then he turned around and sued him. And that's how that lawsuit got going.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. And by the way, if Wally were to ultimately lose that lawsuit, Gators Customs Guns will cease to exist based upon what he owes the state. If he had to pay that judgment, that shop will close down the next day.
Damn.
Well, I hope he wins for his sake. Sorry, go ahead, Will.
No, I just I know that some of these questions are going to be very nuanced, which is exactly what we wanted. We want the detailed info and not the, what people are just saying online, like, oh, you can just SBR whatever you want. The NFA is completely dead, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, let me say something about that to everyone. Okay, first of all, I'm going to be a little critical of some content creators who just really, man, they go off half-cocked. And it's kind of like the people are like, listen, I'm not a lawyer, but here's what I think you should do. Right? Okay. It's, do they stick their head into the cockpit when they're getting on the airplane? It's like, guys, listen, I'm not a pilot.
I try to,
but here's what I think you should do. We have been talking an awful lot about the difference between 4473s and Form 4s. Everyone's been focusing on that. No one is talking about Form 1 activity. And I think that right now, if you call any FFL in the country, I don't care what state you're in, and start asking them, hey, what about this Form 1 activity? Whether it's going to swap the upper off and go to 10.5 inch, or I'm going to take a brace pistol and throw a stock on it, or I'm going to take this solvent trap and turn it into a suppressor. Not like that would ever happen, right?
Of course not.
Right. The FFL, your most trusted FFL, is going to sit there and go, I honestly do not know how you should be doing that right now. And if they don't know, why do you think somebody on YouTube or Twitter does?
Mm-hmm. I mean, even something as simple as, okay, I'm a GOA member. I'm going to make my own SBR. Even, if I'm not going to get hemmed up for that without going through the NFA process, well, can I take it with me as my truck gun on a road trip across state lines?
Right. There's all sorts of things we don't know. Now, the going across state lines was going to be resolved by a new ATF rule anyways, but that rule's not in effect yet. So in the meantime, right? And listen, if you really, people have not even opened this other can of worms. And I've been thinking about it, and I haven't really done a video on it yet because I just don't want to create the ruckus yet. But there are millions of SBRs and suppressors sitting in gun trusts. And gun trusts can only legally have title to NFA items. And if all of these items are no longer under the purview of the NFA, then they almost have to reverse engineer them back out to a 4473 to an individual, and they have to come out of the gun trust.
Huh.
And to make an exception is actually going to require legislative action as to how trusts are governed under federal and state law. It is a mess that no one's even thought about yet. So for anyone on the Form 1 stuff, this is all I got to say. cool your jets for another week or so. We're going to have some more clearer answers in the near future. And then we will begin to clear things out as to what kinds of Form 1 activities can occur under a new system, which ones have to stay under something similar to the old system. And then even if you know all of those answers, you still got to talk to local council in your state to figure out, does state law create an extra wrinkle? Because some states have created extra wrinkles. Other states do not create any
Ours
problem
did.
at all. Yeah.
Ours has a law making it a class 5 felony to own a suppressor, short barrel shotgun, or short barrel rifle, and it's an affirmative defense to have them registered under the NFA. If there's no registration to the NFA anymore, how are we supposed to purchase these?
Yep.
Now we have to take that to the courts and say that's unconstitutional because you're denying us further arms that we're allowed to bear, and that's even more court cases.
If the ATF just does away with registry altogether, because in Washington, we don't need to be registered to have an SBR, but it does need to be registered to have a suppressor because they're in different statutes. Now, does the ATF voluntarily leave some kind of a Form 4, portal out there so that people in those states, and it's not just Colorado and Washington, there's about 15, 16 states on this list, so that they can still remain compliant with federal law to the point that they're still compliant with state law? Nobody knows that. And so that's going to affect how FFLs do things in some states that might not affect FFLs in other states. That's why I did that live thing last week when the first came out. And I took an FFL from Washington State and an FFL from Idaho, which are just like diametrically opposed. And one was talking about how things are going to speed up just like that. And the other one's like, I got to take a wait and see approach.
I got another question for you. And
the audience has some questions too. So
I'm aware this is on topic. So under the injunction, GOA members and current and future are covered. I'm not sure who else is covered, but that's not the point. Point of my question is, if an entire vast group of people is covered under one law that has been declared unconstitutional, does the 14th Amendment and its equal application of rights not then apply that ruling to the rest of us, regardless of what a judge says?
Yeah, I think the answer is a little more simple than that, which is that even though this came off as a facial or a as applied challenge, the ruling of the court provides a facial remedy, doesn't it? Because what the court said is that this law was enacted. This law exists now outside Congress's constitutional authority, and if the law lies outside of Congress's constitutional authority, it lies outside for everybody. And there again lies why the Department of Justice needs to provide some guidance about how is this going to be enforced. What happens when some group in the Ninth Circuit decides, like a Brady decides, like, oh no, we're going to turn this up and we're going to fight this from happening in the Ninth Circuit, which is going to happen or something like that. So should it cover every single American? Yeah, it should. But again, this is because it comes out of a United States District Court. We got that Trump v. Casa case. Says no more nationwide injunctions out of district court. So the court can only structure the remedy it's structured. How DOJ is going to choose to enforce it moving forward, that remains to be seen.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, Trump v. Casa.
Like I said, I think about these things.
Well, I mean, specifically, Congress can't regulate this anymore. So therefore, even though the judge has only struck it down for a certain group, now it's nationwide.
Let's say that you three plus one organization in Colorado sue that saying Senate Bill 3 is unconstitutional. It's in violation of the Second Amendment. We'll make the equation real simple, right? And a court of competent jurisdiction that has authority over the whole state of Colorado, the 10th Circuit goes, you're right. It is totally unconstitutional. Are we suggesting that you three plus the members of that named organization, all you guys are cool, you don't have to deal with Senate Bill 3, but everybody else in Colorado is still stuck with it? That's not the way it should work. And then, of course, that creates an impossibility for every FFL in the state of Colorado. Oh, okay. You're one of those people. So I'm going to do that this way, and every other consumer's. And that's, again, one of the issues that ATF and DOJ needs to resolve, because this FFL in Idaho, Brian Zielinski actually said it best. It's like when you turn out the lights on 94 years of gun control, every FFL is walking around stubbing their toe in the dark right now.
Mhm.
I think it was a great analogy, and why I expected to see something today, honestly. I was up early, like, okay, there's going to be some information out today and an opportunity to educate my viewers. And then, of course, that stuff with the with the frame and receiver rule came out. That kind of captured everyone's attention today.
I don't expect to see anything for
You're right.
1 to 2 weeks from now.
Really,
Yeah.
there's a lot of FFLs flying blind right now, completely flying blind, and that's just not fair to them. And every one of them that's called me is, "What do I do?" I was like, "Err on the side of caution. If you keep doing the way you always did it, there's no way someone's going to bust your ass for that."
Yeah, they can't come in and be like, "Oh, well, you weren't doing it the right way because you were being too restrictive."
Yeah, being too careful is probably a good defense.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you have anything else you wanted to talk about? You mentioned the frame and receiver rule. I know the NFA thing has been a huge topic lately. I know we mostly wanted to cover the Colorado stuff tonight because that's what
Yeah.
we talked about. But is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we get into viewer questions?
Yeah, well, listen, I think the frame and receiver rule is awesome. I also the ruling that we got out of the Northern District of Texas. I also think the United States Department of Justice is likely to appeal that one. That remains to be seen. And again, be careful of content creators who are telling you that you are completely free from the purview of federal legislation, because you may have state legislation that also limits activities as it relates to what I like to call unserialized firearms. And so you want to, again, no matter what state you're in, always check with local counsel. Make sure there's not some nuance in state law that some content creator didn't point out to you, and now you're doing illegal activity.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for those, because it's so brand new, for anybody that may not follow the law as closely as you, and to a lesser extent the three of us, can you give a quick synopsis of the decision from Texas today or yesterday, whenever it was,
Yeah,
on the
no.
frame receivers?
What had happened is a couple of years ago, in the case of Vanderstock v. Bondi, and I think by the time I got to the Supreme Court, it was Bondi v. Vanderstock. The court upheld the frame and receiver rule, saying that the ATF had not exceeded their statutory authority. That was the only constitutional issue that was decided in that case. Supplemental suits were brought saying, okay, that's fine, but it's unconstitutional on a couple of other separate grounds. One, that it's void for vagueness, and number two, it's in violation of the Second Amendment. The court has agreed on both counts there. There was actually other challenges that the court disagreed with, but doesn't matter. Two of them, the court said, yeah, you're right. And so therefore the frame and receiver rule is theoretically struck down. This is what makes it important, because if you go and you take a look at federal United States Code definitions, we define firearm, and the words frame and receiver is used in the definition of firearm, but we do not separately define frame or receiver. That is done in the Code of Federal Regulations, but it was never done up until the frame and receiver rule came along, which means if this rule dies, all of the legislation that, or all of it that came with it, would be removed from the books, which would mean the definition of frame or receiver would also be removed. So while it's wonderful to be chipping away at this, the clarity of where do we cross that Rubicon from raw material to frame or receiver is going to become murkier and murkier.
Maybe the murkier it gets, the less they'll care.
And that is
they'll realize
possible. Certainly this version of ATF, I think you're right. But as we also know, it's not a question of if the political winds change, it's just a question of when they will change, right? Yep. And that's why we need to be very careful about all the stuff that's being done through rulemaking, or all the stuff that's being done through appropriations, because all that can be done that way can be taken away that way as well.
So let me bounce back to what I was asking you earlier about how you argue a case. I understand what you were saying, that there's trying the case in front of a jury, that you're limited in the scope that you can argue, and trying to win it on the legal merits, basically in front of a judge through an injunction, dismissal of the charges, through whatever grounds. Now, my question is based on what you've just mentioned. The frame and receiver rule was ruled at the Supreme Court okay because that was within the ATF's scope. But the other like you just said, the rest of it was ruled unconstitutional recently. So my question is, why are these cases not being argued from every conceivable unconstitutional angle that they possibly can be? Like, if it was me, I would say that assault weapons bans violate not only the Heller ruling for common use, but the Miller ruling for weapons that are useful in a militia, because the AR-15 is the ideal militia weapon. It uses the same mags and ammo as our military uses. You can't tell me that a civilian-owned AR-15 brought to the front lines to integrate with our soldiers would not be useful. There is no reason you have the legal authority to ban it on that basis. And then I would just expand from there, because I will rant and rant and rant. But
Well, yeah, but the examples you give again are, as you frame it, expanding the argument, but it's expanding the argument inside the confines of the Second Amendment. So do you want to expand them that way, or do you want to expand outside the Second Amendment? Because I've always been critical of, for example, some of these states that were challenging bans. If the ban is upheld, the individual can no longer lawfully possess these items. That turns into a takings. That's in violation of the Fifth Amendment, unconstitutional takings. So I've always wondered why that isn't encapsulated more as well.
me
In
too.
Virginia, we saw under arguments on their assault weapon ban under the state constitution, the argument about the militia clause in the state constitution. Really good, actually, I thought very clever argument. The court wasn't persuaded by it, but that's not necessarily an accurate litmus test of how good the argument really was. And it's a tough question for me to answer, because there are strategical reasons by which attorneys and legal teams will decide to kind of tunnel vision the court onto a couple of particular issues and not take a shotgun approach. I do know that as an attorney, serving in both sides of the aisle, that when you see shotgun memorandums, they're just out there just spraying and praying with every single issue, that oftentimes will indicate to you that they are just spraying and praying. Whereas if you see a brief that's written more with the scalpel and less with the shotgun, that's when you have a tendency to realize that there probably is some legitimacy. But again, every piece of litigation is different, and the reasons for doing such can be dictated by many things, cost being one of them, page limit being another.
Hadn't considered that one.
So
Yeah.
what you're saying is that the human element is always going to matter, and perception in court matters as much as what's written on the paper.
Absolutely. Absolutely it does. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah,
It
no, it was a good
helped a lot.
question. Good question. Yeah.
So speaking of questions, I know we are
Close on time.
I don't want to shotgun them, but
Shotgun them.
Bill, go.
Yeah, let's shotgun them.
Yeah. So we have one question here from an anonymous viewer. Does the Colorado, and I know you're not, as far as I know, you're not licensed in Colorado, but
Correct.
to your understanding, does the Colorado FOID like law ungrandfather possession of so-called large capacity magazines? That may be too technical for your understanding of Colorado law, but there were some things stricken from the 2013 law to add this new law in.
Sam, can you bring that up if you could see it?
So when they say ungrandfather, does that mean that suddenly you have to dispossess yourself of certain items?
So the
Yeah.
new law has the magazine possession ban enacted as of July 2013.
Okay, I've got it right
magazines-
there. I
So,
will try to make this fast. And if
Sam will
it's
share a screen
something,
rather
if
than me
it's something
having
you're
you
like,
split.
look, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I
Totally
highlighted
fine.
large
Zoom
capacity
in.
magazines prohibited, penalties, exceptions, except as otherwise provided in this section, and then it slashes out on and or after July 1st, 2013, if a person sells, transfers, or possesses a large capacity magazine, commits a class 2, and then changes it to class 1 misdemeanor. The thing that I've got some buddies who are confused on is the on and after July 1st thing.
Well,
To
that's
me,
a
that
strike
just
through,
means
so
they
it
crossed
doesn't
it out.
matter
They made
anymore.
it.
Mike,
They
shut
just
up.
updated. That's
Our
what I'm
Mike.
saying.
Mike, shut up.
So that's a strike through. So the July 1st date is no longer applicable. How do they define large capacity magazines? Do they define it just by what we would think it, or
Anything-
they also define them by date of ownership?
Anything over anything. So previously, the law has been anything over 15 rounds. Basically, if it's say an AR mag, we'll just go with that, or a pistol mag. And then if it was possessed before July 1st, it was grandfathered in.
Okay. If it was okay, well, that makes sense because the commercial sale of them would be illegal starting July 1st, right? Or
Right.
August. Did the law go into effect July
So
1st?
this is referencing the 2013
Oh,
law that
okay.
came after Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, guys, man, I was a plain old trial lawyer back in 2013. I didn't even have Washington. I didn't even have the website Washington Gun Law. So
Totally valid. We were just wondering for a not a representative legal opinion, just a legalese understanding opinion on that one.
It just looks like they removed the on or after date. Like the law still exists as written, just no longer the on or after because the new law updates the old law and the new law takes effect on August 1st or took effect on August 1st.
And
That's how I read it.
and it had a grandfathering provision in
Right.
it, did it not?
Yes.
Right.
That's the applicable law then.
Yep.
So it just struck the date. It just updated the date.
One of our regular viewers, GatLab, asks in regard to assault weapons bans, and I'm assuming he means writ large here, not specifically Colorado, limitations on magazine and weapons features, and in the light of current 2A cases, findings, stays, etc., would we be offered better or more legal protections if things like magazines and suppressors, which suppressors already are under some court cases to my understanding, were considered firearms or accessories?
Oh, absolutely, if they're considered arms. Accessories can be banned. Accessories have no constitutional protection whatsoever. Arms are presumptively constitutionally protected. So suppressors, which are defined in federal law as firearms, afford Second Amendment protection. And you got to remember, once the Second Amendment's text is implicated, the burden shifts to the government to justify through historical analogs that a ban is historically supported. So if the broader the definition is of an arm, the more protection those items would be afforded.
That was my understanding as well, but it's nice to hear it from somebody that understands law.
Yeah.
The last question I'll ask.
By the way, real quick, the reason that Cheeseman case out of New Jersey is so huge is because they found that magazines are arms. Why is that so huge? Because Duncan and the Gators case both found that they are merely attachments or accoutrements. So that means that both of those cases are going to have do-overs now. The court is going to have to go back down and redo those cases.
That's awesome. That could end up really good or really bad for us.
Is that what you were talking about with the circuit split earlier?
Yep. And then you got what's called a GVR, grant, vacate, remand. So this court will take a lot of these other cases that are just sitting on ice right now. And after the Viramontes ruling comes down, they'll send them back down to their lower courts and say, do over. You got to do it. You got it wrong. So here's the new case and do it consistent with this.
Those are always really interesting too. I mean, it takes more time and more money to get back up, but
it took 3 years to get here, and now it takes another 3 years for them to.
Yeah, well, you know, Duncan's an 11-year-old case.
Yeah,
11 years old. Miller v. Bonta was GVR'd after Bruin came out, and the Ninth Circuit shockingly came to the same conclusion. Amazing.
There was a case I was following around the same time as Bruin, if I remember right. There was an EPA case that was from the 90s.
Yeah.
So this stuff can take some time.
It did take forever to get there. Yep.
And it makes sense why people get so frustrated over how long this takes, but that's how our government was designed, to be inefficient so that they couldn't just fell swoop take things from us. So that's always something.
Well, that
our courts weren't designed that way
security too. That's the thing.
Sorry, what was that, sir?
Inefficiency creates job security in government. In the government sector.
Also, facts.
That's where bureaucracy comes from.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Last question before we close out. This is actually a question that I submitted myself. What effect, if any, and if you don't know the answer, I don't know, because we don't know a lot of things. It's totally fine. What effect, if any, would this newest NFA ruling out of Texas, or for that matter, the frame and receiver ruling now, have on U.S. territories?
Well, again, it's going to depend on what sort of territorial laws overlap. So that question is really no different than what effect will it have on me in Maine. If there is no state laws that hinder things, then things are going to go back down to whatever ATF directive there would be. So with the NFA items, you'd be back down to a 4473 on frames and receivers. God only knows what it is, but certainly you would be able to deal in products that are known as unserialized firearms. But if you have state law laying over the top, or territorial law, and Puerto Rico and the American Virgin Islands have terrible gun laws. I mean, almost like Illinois-like gun laws sitting over the top. These rulings might not provide that much relief to you.
Yeah. I was just wondering because I know territories are treated very differently. For example, they get representatives in Congress, but they don't get to vote on things. So I didn't know if there was something extra there. And
no, but they fall into circuit courts of appeal.
Yep.
The American Virgin Islands is governed by the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. So the same ones that just overturned New Jersey's assault weapon ban. So that's why I think DOJ is over there in the Virgin Islands just beating the hell out of them right now, because they got them. They really got them cornered there,
which is awesome. Well, sir, I know you have to head out here in just a couple of minutes, but I wanted to give you some time for some closing thoughts before we do the final formal closing.
Well, I would just encourage all of your viewers to, I think that to be a proper steward of the Second Amendment, and that's really what I think we all are, those who choose to engage in Second Amendment activities, we have to be good stewards of that constitutional right. And that is there's an ongoing obligation to continuously educate yourself about not only all the things necessary to be tactically and trained correctly and proficient and all of that, how to be safe and all that, but to understand the laws, not only on a federal level, but on a state level as well. And then it's also your obligation to impart that knowledge onto others. And I say that because, having dealt with the civilian disarmament crowd for a number of years now, I realize that there is about 5, maybe 10% of them that have been personally affected by gun violence. And I don't think we can put ourselves in their shoes. And candidly, I don't think there's any convincing them to think any other way. So I think you just got to throw those in to the whatever. But about 90% of them just don't know what the hell they're talking about. They have no clue what they're talking about. And there is opportunity through education to begin to educate the country about the importance of the Second Amendment. There's a reason that the Second Amendment is so healthy it is today, because at the end of the day, the law, the facts, the Constitution, common sense is all on our side. And so I encourage all of your viewers to continue to consume the law, the facts, the Constitution, and common sense, and then impart that on others. So my advice.
I couldn't agree more. And that's why so many people say the easiest way to do that is just to take somebody to the range.
Yep.
You're never going to convince the people that are on the far other side, but there may be people that are on the fence or close to the fence that the other side is actively trying to take. So if we can get them on our side, then that's just going to make everything better for us. So really appreciate that. I think we can all resonate with that.
Remember, kids, if you're going to engage in civil disobedience, it helps to know what laws you're disobeying.
And the penalties associated therewith.
Which is why I know it's a Class 5 felony to own a suppressor that's not registered.
With that,
I'm not saying I own one. I'm just saying that this whole thing. Anyway, Bill, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on, giving us your time, giving us your thoughts. And remember, gentlemen, he is a lawyer. He is not your lawyer. I say gentlemen because we definitely don't have any ladies on the show. In fact, we believe that all women on the internet are actually dudes.
I don't know. Rim Job Radio is pretty much a bitch.
Yeah.
Whoa, that was not necessary.
Love you, Drew.
It was at least acceptable. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Once again, thank you, Bill, for coming on. The party demands feedback. All citizens and conscripts are reminded that the party values constructive criticism. Please visit AK47radio.org. Leave us a review.
AK47radio.net.
.net, yes. Normally he's the lead for these episodes, but since we were the ones communicating over tonight, I took over and I'm failing miserably, just as communism normally does.
Indeed.
AK47radio.net. Leave us a review, join the Discord channel, get in there and engage in and add to the debauchery. Anonymity is guaranteed, and if it's not, we will have you face the wall. With that,
just a color on it. It's nothing sinister.
Get some more bluing off of that Makarov of yours.
yeah, right. Always remember, I'm going to change the outro a little bit. Get out there and join some of these Pro 2A organizations. Training is great. Training is great. You should absolutely train, but you should also join some of these organizations. Read up on your local, state, and federal laws. Get involved in your elections. Actually do some research on the people you may or may not be voting for, and go vote in the fucking first place. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to just be good at this stuff. You want your kids and the future generations to be good, or be able to be good at this stuff. And that's not going to happen without the types of things we talked about tonight. So take care. Do svidaniya, comrades. And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Not if I see you first. And that'll do it.